My dad kicked me out after believing my stepmom's lie that I stole her daughter's college fund, so I made his future mine to decide. 5 years ago, I was living at my dad's house after I finished college, planning to save up enough to get my own place. You'd think things would be pretty normal, right? Just a guy coming back to his family's home, hoping to get on his feet. But nah, it wasn't like that. My dad had remarried when I was in high school to a woman named Emma, and she had a daughter, Chloe, who was a few years younger than me. Let's just say right off the bat, they weren't exactly thrilled about having me around. I don't know how to explain it, but from day one, Emma and Chloe made it pretty obvious they didn't like me. They had this way of acting like I wasn't part of the family, you know? Like I was some outsider crashing their little party. It wasn't even subtle. Emma would always make these passive-aggressive comments, and Chloe would give me these looks like I was the enemy. The worst part? My dad, Jack, never saw it. He acted like everything was fine, like they were the nicest people on earth. I tried talking to him about it a few times, but he would just brush me off, saying stuff like, "Oh, they're just getting used to having you around, or you're overthinking things, Ryan." But trust me, I wasn't. The tension in that house was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Still, I didn't really have any other options. I didn't have enough saved up to move out yet, so I stuck it out. I tried to avoid being home as much as possible, usually staying out late and coming back when I knew they'd all be asleep. I'd hoped things would eventually cool off, but that never happened. One day, I was out house hunting, trying to find something affordable so I could finally get out of there. When I came back that evening, something felt off. You ever walk into a room and just know something's wrong? Yeah, it was like that. The whole house was weirdly quiet, no TV on, no sound of dishes clinking in the kitchen, nothing. Just silence. I walked into the living room, and there they were, my dad, Emma, and Chloe, all sitting on the couch like they were waiting for me. My dad's face looked different. He looked serious, like something big was about to go down. But I had no idea what it was. My heart started racing, and I had this sinking feeling that whatever was coming wasn't good. "Ryan, we need to talk," my dad said, his voice cold, like he wasn't the guy who'd raised me. Emma and Chloe were sitting there with this smug look on their faces, like they knew something I didn't. I stood there frozen, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. "You've been stealing from us," Chloe blurted out, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I blinked. "What?" "You heard her," Emma chimed in. "You've been stealing Chloe's college savings." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Stealing from her? What kind of sick joke was this? Wait, hold on. What are you talking about?" "I haven't touched any of Chloe's money," I said, trying to keep my cool, but my voice was shaking. Emma crossed her arms and leaned back on the couch, like she had all the evidence she needed. "Don't try to lie, Ryan. We found the receipts." "Receipts?" Now I was just straight up confused. "Receipts for what?" "Your little shopping spree," Chloe snapped. "Dad found all the stuff you bought hidden under your bed." And that's when it hit me, the luxury items I'd never seen before, the ones supposedly stashed under my bed, stuff I would never buy in a million years. They'd set me up. I looked at my dad, waiting for him to back me up, to tell me this was all some misunderstanding. But he didn't. Instead, he stood up and glared at me like I was some criminal. "I found the bags under your bed, Ryan. I can't believe you'd do this to your own family." My stomach dropped. He actually believed them. "Dad, I didn't," I tried to explain, but he cut me off. "Don't. Just stop," he said, shaking his head. "We trusted you, and you went behind our backs and took Chloe's money. You think I didn't notice the withdrawals from her account?" I couldn't even speak. This was insane. I hadn't taken a dime from anyone, but the way my dad was looking at me, it was like he'd already made up his mind. I was guilty in his eyes, and nothing I could say would change that. "Pack your things," he said, his voice cold. "I want you out of this house tonight." I couldn't believe it. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that my own dad was kicking me out, not even giving me a chance to prove I was innocent. I felt this mix of anger, frustration, and hurt all at once. It was like everything I'd tried to build with him, every time I'd tried to get him to see how toxic Emma and Chloe were, just didn't matter anymore. "Dad, please, just listen." "No," he said, his face hard. "We've listened enough. It's over." That's when Emma got up, smirking like she just won some kind of game. "You should have known better, Ryan. Family doesn't steal from family." The nerve of her. I wanted to yell, to fight, to make my dad see how full of it she was. But I knew it wouldn't do any good. He was too far gone. Emma had him wrapped around her finger, and Chloe, well, she was just following her mom's lead. I packed my stuff that night, my hands shaking the whole time. I didn't take much, just a suitcase and a few essentials. The entire time, I could feel my dad's eyes on me, watching like he was making sure I didn't take anything else. It broke me. This was the man who'd raised me, who I thought would always have my back, and here he was, throwing me out without even letting me explain. As I walked out the front door, I didn't look back. I couldn't. It hurt too much. I didn't know where I was going to go, what I was going to do, but one thing was clear: my dad had chosen them over me, and that, more than anything, was what hurt the most. After that night, I crashed at a friend's place for a while. My friend Matt, who's honestly a lifesaver, let me stay on his couch while I tried to figure out what the hell just happened. I felt like my whole world had flipped upside down in the blink of an eye. One day, I was thinking about house hunting and saving money, and the next, I was practically homeless, accused of stealing from my own family. It was surreal. At first, I thought I could fix it. I mean, it was obviously some huge misunderstanding, right? Like, I thought if I gave it a few days, maybe my dad would realize he'd made a mistake and call me, apologize, and let me come back. I kept checking my phone every hour, hoping there'd be a message from him. But days went by, and nothing. Dead silence. I kept replaying the whole thing in my head, wondering how it all went so wrong. The more I thought about it, the more everything pointed back to Emma and Chloe. They must have planned this for a while. The whole finding the stuff under my bed thing was way too convenient. It wasn't even stuff I would buy, designer clothes, a bunch of overpriced junk. I've never cared about that kind of thing, and anyone who knows me could tell you that. But Emma, she's all about status. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. She had been setting me up for months, slowly turning my dad against me, and I walked right into her trap without even realizing it. The worst part wasn't even the accusation. It was that my dad believed it so easily. He didn't even hesitate, didn't ask me for my side, didn't give me a chance to defend myself, just threw me out like I was nothing. That's what really broke me. My own father, who I thought had my back, picked them over me without a second thought. I tried not to think about it too much because every time I did, it felt like a punch in the gut. A few weeks went by, and I was still at Matt's place. He didn't mind, but I knew I couldn't stay there forever. I was lucky to have a decent job lined up after graduation, so at least I wasn't completely screwed. But trying to find a place while dealing with all this, it wasn't easy. Most nights, I'd lie awake on that couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering if my life was ever going to get back to normal. Then one day, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know why my dad believed them so easily, why he didn't even give me a chance to explain myself. So I did something I probably shouldn't have. I went back to the house. I didn't have a plan or anything. I just showed up and knocked on the door, hoping maybe we could talk like normal people. But when Emma opened the door and saw me standing there, the look on her face said it all. She wasn't expecting me, and she sure as hell wasn't happy to see me. "What do you want, Ryan?" she said, blocking the doorway like I was some intruder. "I need to talk to my dad," I replied, trying to stay calm even though I could feel my blood boiling just looking at her. "He's not here," she said, crossing her arms. "And even if he was, I doubt he'd want to see you after everything you've done." "Everything I've done?" That was rich coming from her. I could feel the anger rising in my chest, but I tried to keep my cool. "I didn't do anything, Emma. You and Chloe set me up, and you know it." She didn't even flinch. "I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you should leave before things get worse." I should have walked away. I know that now. But in the moment, all I could think about was how unfair this all was, how she turned my own dad against me and then acted like she was the victim. I wasn't leaving until I got some answers. "Where's Dad?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "I'm not leaving until I talk to him," Emma sighed, like I was some kid throwing a tantrum. "He's at work. But like I said, he's done with you, Ryan. You stole from this family. You're lucky we didn't call the cops." That was it. The cops? Seriously? She was taking this to a whole new level of crazy. I could feel the anger bubbling up, but I knew if I didn't leave, things were going to get ugly, so I turned around and walked away, fuming. After that, I stopped trying to fix things. It was clear my dad had chosen his side, and nothing I said or did was going to change that. I couldn't believe this was my life now, cut off from my family, labeled as a thief, all because of some petty power play from Emma and Chloe. It felt like I was living someone else's nightmare. The next few months were rough. I finally found a small apartment, nothing fancy, but it was mine. It felt good to have my own space, but there was always this emptiness in the back of my mind. I'd lost my family, and no matter how much I tried to move on, it was like this weight I couldn't shake. Every once in a while, I'd get these messages from mutual friends or distant relatives, people asking if I was okay, telling me they'd heard about what happened. Everyone seemed to know the story, or at least the version Emma and Chloe had told. It was like I was the black sheep of the family now, and the rumors just kept spreading. I'd tell people the truth if they asked, but honestly, it didn't matter. The damage was done. My dad had made up his mind, and Emma had done a damn good job of convincing everyone that I was the bad guy. One day, Matt sat me down, and we had a long talk about everything. He was one of the few people who believed me from the start. He knew Emma and Chloe were trouble, and he'd always thought my dad was too blind to see it. "You've got to stop letting them live rent-free in your head, man," he said. "They're not worth it." I nodded, but it wasn't that simple. It's easy to say move on, but when your own dad turns his back on you, it's hard to just let that go. Still, Matt was right. I couldn't keep dwelling on it. I had to figure out a way to move forward. So I started focusing on my job, trying to keep myself busy. I saved up as much as I could, trying to rebuild what I'd lost. It wasn't easy, but little by little, I started to get my life back on track. But even as things got better, that feeling of betrayal never went away. I kept thinking about all the times I'd tried to make things work with my dad, all the times I'd tried to tell him about Emma and Chloe, and in the end, none of it mattered. They won, and I was the one who lost everything. Looking back, I guess I should have seen it coming. But you don't expect your own family to stab you in the back like that, and you definitely don't expect your dad to just stand by and let it happen. I had finally gotten to a place where I wasn't thinking about them as much. I'd moved into my own apartment, settled into my job, and was starting to feel like I could move on. But of course, life doesn't let you off that easy. One afternoon, out of nowhere, I get a knock on my door. Now, I wasn't expecting anyone. I'm not exactly popular with surprise visitors, so I figured maybe it was a neighbor or something. But when I opened the door, it wasn't a neighbor. It was my dad, Jack, standing there looking like a ghost. My first reaction was pure shock. I hadn't seen or heard from him in months. After everything that went down, I figured he was done with me. He'd sure as hell made it clear back then that I was the bad guy in his eyes. But now here he was, on my doorstep, looking all, I don't know, guilty. "Ryan," he said, almost like he was unsure if I'd even recognize him. As if I could forget the face of the guy who basically threw me away like garbage. "Can I come in?" I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to slam the door right in his face. The other part of me was curious. Why was he here now, after all this time? Was he here to apologize? Was he going to tell me he finally saw through Emma's lies? My brain was racing, but all I could manage to say was, "What do you want?" He hesitated for a second, like he wasn't sure how to answer that. "I need to talk to you. It's important." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let him in. It felt weird having him in my space. This was my new life, my clean slate, and now the guy who practically kicked me out of his life was standing in the middle of my living room, looking around like he didn't recognize me anymore. He sat down on the couch without asking, and I just stood there, waiting for him to start. There was this awkward silence that hung between us, thick and uncomfortable. Finally, he cleared his throat and looked up at me. "I made a mistake, Ryan," he said, his voice low. "A big one." I crossed my arms, not wanting to give him any slack just yet. "Yeah? What mistake was that?" He looked down at the floor, fidgeting with his hands like he didn't know where to begin. "Emma, she wasn't who I thought she was. Chloe either. They lied to me about everything." I didn't say anything. I just stood there staring at him, waiting for him to get to the point. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, some acknowledgement that I wasn't the bad guy, that he had been wrong. But hearing it didn't feel as good as it felt as I thought it would. It actually kind of pissed me off, like it took this long for him to figure it out after everything. They set you up," he continued, his voice cracking a little. "Emma planted all that stuff in your room, the receipts, the clothes. It was all her idea. She used you to cover up the fact that she was the one spending Chloe's college fund." I wanted to laugh. It was so ridiculous that it almost didn't seem real. "And you just believed her? You believed them without even talking to me?" He looked up at me, his eyes filled with regret, but it didn't matter anymore. Regret wasn't going to fix anything. "I know, I should have listened to you. I didn't want to believe that Emma could do something like that. I was blind, Ryan. I was stupid." "Yeah, you were," I said, maybe harsher than I meant to, but I didn't care. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't know what to say. A part of me wanted to forgive him, to let it go and move on, but another part of me, the part that still hurt every time I thought about that night, wasn't ready to let him off the hook. "Why now?" I finally asked. "Why are you telling me this now?" He sighed, leaning back on the couch. "Emma's parents told me the truth a few weeks ago. There was a huge blow-up between them, and everything came out. They couldn't keep it a secret anymore." "So what? You only believe it because someone else told you? You couldn't take my word for it back then?" He winced, like my words physically hurt him. I should have believed you, Ryan. I know that now. I just didn't want to see it. I didn't want to admit that I'd married someone like that. And yet you did," I said. "And you threw me under the bus to protect her." He didn't say anything to that, and for the first time in my life, I saw my dad look defeated. It was weird. Growing up, he'd always been this strong, confident guy, but sitting there in my apartment, He just looked old, like all the fight had been drained out of him. I filed for divorce, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. A few weeks ago. I couldn't stay with her after what I found out. Good for you, I said, my voice flat. He looked up at me, and for a second, I thought maybe he'd stand up and leave. But then he said something I didn't expect. I need your help, Ryan. I blinked. My help? He nodded, looking almost desperate. Emma's got a lawyer who's trying to take me for everything. I know you're friends with one of the best divorce attorneys in the city. I was hoping maybe you could put in a word for me, help me out. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, after kicking me out, accusing me of being a thief, choosing them over me, he was here asking for my help. You've got to be kidding me, I said, my voice rising. You think you can just waltz back into my life, say you're sorry, and then ask me to help you after everything you put me through? I know it's a lot to ask, he said quickly, like he was trying to stop me from blowing up. But I'm trying to make things right. I want to fix our relationship, Ryan. I want to make up for what I did. I shook my head, letting out a bitter laugh. You don't want to fix anything. You just want me to help you get out of this mess with Emma. That's not true, he said, but I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't here just to apologize. He was here because he needed something from me. I think you should leave, I said, stepping back toward the door. He stood up, looking like he was about to argue, but then he stopped. Maybe he realized there was no point. Maybe he finally understood that it was too late. Ryan, I'm sorry, he said again, but it sounded hollow this time, like he knew it wasn't enough. I didn't say anything. I just opened the door and waited for him to walk out. He hesitated for a second, but then he stepped outside, turning to look at me one last time before I closed the door in his face. And that was it. The man who had been my father, the man I had once looked up to, was gone. And this time, I wasn't waiting for him to come back. After my dad left that day, I thought maybe, just maybe, things would calm down, like I could finally move on for real. You know, he'd come to me, said his half-baked apology, asked for my help, which I shut down pretty fast, and that was that. I figured I wouldn't be hearing from him again anytime soon. But of course, life doesn't work like that. A few days later, I get a call from my mom. Now, my mom and I were never super close. She and my dad split when I was a kid, and I'd spent most of my time with him growing up, especially after he remarried. Still, I thought she had my back through all this. I'd told her what happened with Emma and Chloe, and how my dad kicked me out. She wasn't happy about it, but she didn't seem all that surprised either. She always thought Emma was shady, but that was about the extent of it. So when she called, I wasn't expecting much, probably just her checking in, maybe asking how I was doing. But the second I picked up, I could tell something was off. Ryan, she started, her voice softer than usual. We need to talk. I braced myself. The way she said it, I knew it wasn't just a casual conversation. What's up? I asked, trying to keep it light. She hesitated, and that's when I knew this wasn't going to be good. Your father called me. My heart dropped. Of course he did. Okay, I said, dragging out the word, waiting for the punchline. He told me about everything, she continued, about Emma, the accusations, and the divorce. He wants to fix things with you, Ryan. I couldn't help but laugh, though there wasn't anything funny about it. Yeah, I know. He already tried to get me to help him out with his divorce lawyer. There was silence on the other end. My mom was never great at hiding her emotions, so I could practically feel the tension coming through the phone. He's really sorry, Ryan, she finally said. He knows he messed up. I rolled my eyes. Great. So now what? He thinks everything's just going to go back to normal because he said sorry? I think he wants to make things right, she replied, but her voice was shaky, like she didn't fully believe it herself. Right for him or right for me? I shot back. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like he's just trying to save his own skin. I could feel the tension in her silence. Ryan, you can't keep holding on to this anger forever, she said, her voice getting that edge it always got when she was about to lecture me. At some point, you need to forgive him. He's your father. Yeah, and he's the same guy who kicked me out because he believed his wife over me, I snapped. Forgiving him isn't as easy as you think, Mom. I'm not saying it's easy, she said, a little softer now. But he's trying. He came to you, didn't he? Yeah, because he wants something from me, I said, frustration boiling up again. It's not about me, Mom. It's about him. It's always been about him. She went quiet again, and I knew she was trying to figure out how to get me to see things her way. But I wasn't budging, not this time. I get that you're hurt, she said eventually. But family is complicated, Ryan. People make mistakes, and yeah, your dad made a big one. But he's trying to fix it. I could feel the heat rising in my chest. He's not trying to fix me. He's trying to fix his divorce, and he's using me to do it. You don't get it, Mom. I do get it, she said, but I could hear the frustration creeping into her voice now. I understand that he hurt you, but he's still your dad, and that counts for something. I wanted to hang up. I didn't want to have this conversation anymore, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the way her voice cracked, or maybe I was just tired of fighting with everyone. I don't know. I just stood there, phone in hand, trying to figure out what to say next. You're defending him, I finally said, the words coming out more like an accusation than anything else. I'm not defending what he did, she replied quickly. I'm just saying maybe you should give him another chance. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Give him another chance? After everything? Why? Because he suddenly realized Emma was lying? Because he finally decided to believe me? Ryan, please, she said, her voice breaking a little. I'm not asking you to forget what happened. I'm just asking you to think about it. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. You weren't there, Mom. You don't get it. I know I wasn't there, she said softly. But I'm still your mother, and I want what's best for you. Carrying around all this anger, it's not good for you. I laughed again, but this time it came out more like a bitter chuckle. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what's not good for me, letting someone walk all over me and then pretending everything's fine. I'm not saying that, she said quickly. I'm just saying maybe it's worth talking to him again. I couldn't do this anymore. I've got to go, Mom, I said, cutting her off. Ryan, please, I'll talk to you later. And with that, I hung up. I stood there for a while, staring at my phone, wondering what the hell had just happened. My own mom, who had always warned me about how manipulative Emma was now defending my dad like he was some kind of victim in all this. It didn't make sense. None of it made sense. Over the next few days, I tried to put it out of my head, but the more I thought about it, the more it gnawed at me. How could she not see what was happening? How could she side with him after everything? Was I the crazy one here? Then, out of nowhere, I get a text from my mom. It was short, just a few lines, but it hit like a punch in the gut. Your father and I talked. He wants to come over and explain things. I think you should let him. Family matters, Ryan. Don't forget that. That's when it clicked. My dad had gotten to her somehow. He'd convinced her to take his side, to push me to forgive him. It wasn't just about him anymore. Now my mom was involved too. I didn't respond. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, staring at the screen, feeling like everything I'd been holding on to was slipping through my fingers. Family matters, that's what she'd said. But what happens when your family is the one that tears you apart? I wish I could say everything got better after that call with my mom, but life's not that simple. The whole situation left me more confused than ever. I spent the next few days going over everything in my head, thinking about what she said. Family matters. Sure, family matters, but what do you do when your family's the reason you feel like crap all the time? I tried focusing on work, on keeping my life moving forward, but it was hard. It was like no matter what I did, the weight of all this family drama was always there, just hanging over me, and it wasn't like I could just not think about it. My dad showing up at my door, my mom taking his side, it was too much. Then, a week or so after my mom's call, I get another knock at the door. For a split second, I thought it might be Matt stopping by to hang out or something. But no, when I opened the door, there was my mom, standing there looking like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Can we talk? She asked, not even waiting for me to invite her in. She just kind of pushed her way inside, like this conversation was happening whether I wanted it to or not. I closed the door behind her, already feeling the tight knot of frustration forming in my chest. What's this about, Mom? She turned to face me, her expression serious, like this was going to be some big conversation. Ryan, I've been thinking a lot about what we talked about your dad and about everything that's happened. I crossed my arms, not really in the mood for another round of let's defend your dad. Okay, and? She sighed, sitting down on my couch. I know you're hurt. I know what he did was wrong. But I also know that holding on to this anger isn't going to help you. I stared at her, trying to keep my cool. You're still defending him. I'm not defending him, she said quickly. I'm just trying to help you understand that sometimes people make mistakes. He made a mistake, Ryan. He's trying to make it right. Right. I couldn't help it, I let out this bitter laugh. He's not trying to make anything right. He wants me to help him with his divorce, Mom. That's all he cares about. She shook her head. I don't believe that. I think he really does want to fix things with you. Well, I don't care what he wants, I snapped. I'm not helping him, and I'm not interested in hearing whatever excuse he's come up with. Ryan, please, she said, her voice softer now. I'm not asking you to forgive him overnight. I'm just asking you to give him a chance. I sat down in the chair across from her, rubbing my hands over my face. I was tired of this conversation, tired of the guilt, tired of feeling like I was the one in the wrong for not wanting to help the guy who turned his back on me. Mom, I said, trying to stay calm, I can't just pretend like everything's fine. He kicked me out. He believed Emma and Chloe over me without even hearing me out. He let them frame me, and now he wants me to help him because it's convenient for him. I understand that, she said, leaning forward. But think about what's really important. Do you want to go the rest of your life without a relationship with your father? That hit me harder than I expected. The truth was, I didn't want to hate my dad. I didn't want to feel this angry and betrayed all the time. But how do you get past something like that? How do you forgive someone who didn't even give you a chance? I don't know, Mom, I admitted, my voice quieter now. I don't know if I can forgive him. She nodded, like she finally understood where I was coming from. I get that. I do. But just think about it, okay? Think about what kind of future you want. Holding on to all this anger, it's not going to help you in the long run. I didn't say anything. I just sat there, staring at the floor, trying to figure out what to say. She stood up after a minute, walking over and giving me a quick hug before heading to the door. I'm not asking you to make a decision right now, she said before leaving. Just think about it, okay? When she was gone, I sat there for a long time, trying to wrap my head around everything. Part of me wanted to call my dad, to hear him out, to see if maybe he really was sorry. But the other part of me, the part that remembered how easily he threw me away, wanted nothing to do with him. It's weird. You spend your whole life thinking your parents are supposed to be these people you can trust, people who will always have your back, and when they don't, when they turn on you like that, it screws with your head. A couple of days passed, and I kept trying to put the whole thing out of my mind. But it was like this cloud hanging over me. I'd be at work, and all I could think about was my mom's words echoing in my head. Do you want to go the rest of your life without a relationship with your father? I guess the answer was no. I didn't want to live my life hating him. But how do you even begin to forgive something like that? Then one night, I was sitting in my apartment, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, when I got a message from my dad. It was short, just a few lines, but I could tell it wasn't easy for him to send. Ryan, I know I've hurt you. I know I can't undo what's been done, but I want you to know that I'm truly sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I'd like to talk if you're willing. I stared at the message for a long time, not sure what to do. I could ignore it, pretend like I didn't see it, or I could respond, open the door to whatever conversation was coming next. I don't know what made me do it, but I started typing back. Maybe. We'll see. It wasn't much, but it was something. As I hit send, I realized this wasn't about helping him with his divorce or fixing things on his terms. This was about me deciding what I wanted. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had some control over the situation. Maybe that's what I needed all along.